Welcome to another session on Compute Network. So in this session, we are going to discussing about the Bluetooth process. So in the session, we are going to discussing about in depth of this Bluetooth mechanism. So what is mean by Bluetooth? How it works? So assume that when two mobile phones are there. So in this mobile phone, we are to initialize the Bluetooth signal value, and here also we are to initialize the Bluetooth signal value. First we have to scan the values, and later on we have to go for this pair the devices. One pairing is successfully done with the two devices, then we can able to transmit the information as well as we can able to receive the information. So in this Bluetooth structure, in the Bluetooth architecture, how we are able to generate the structure value, how we are able to establishing this network value, the inter-network value, how we are able to establish inter-network value, and how we are able to scan the parameters, and how we are able to scan the another Bluetooth devices, and how we are able to sync or how we are able to pair the devices. Once the pairing is successfully done, we can able to transmit the value and receive the value. If pairing is not successfully initiated, we can't able to transmit or receive value. So in this session, we are going discussing about how Bluetooth architecture is works. We are going to discuss in this session. Bluetooth in the 1994. So the Ericsson company, when you see the Ericsson is a Sony Ericsson company, is a mobile phone based company. They initiate the process of a Bluetooth devices with the together of the four other companies, which is IBM, Intel, Nokia and Toshiba. So based upon they're forming us different kinds of a small group, we calling as SIG group, which means a special interest group that consortium. So based upon this group, this SIG group able to develop the wireless standard devices, a wireless standard device value. So based upon this group, they initiate the one kind of architecture, they develop the one kind of process we calling as a intercomputing communication. So once we develop this intercomputing communication value, so a small kind of architecture, a limited group of length value, limited group of architecture we designed, we calling as interconnecting computing group value and communication value. Then based upon the authorities, based upon this group, these computing communication services, then we can able to start the process of this Bluetooth value, which means these having as short range communication, and they having as a low power and inexpensive in wireless radio. The project was named as a Bluetooth. So why we calling as short range, and why we calling as a low power, and why we calling as inexpensive wireless radios? Because every mobile phone we are able to initiate the Bluetooth devices, right? So every mobile phone, or else we have separate device Bluetooth module as well. So we are using this Bluetooth module that should be inexpensive of this wireless communication radio, and it may take the less power to work upon that one. When you go for this the separate kind of Bluetooth modules, it may take the power of 3.3 voltage to 5 volts power supply. So while we, instead of this Bluetooth communication, we mounted on this Bluetooth on our mobile phones, it will take the same Bluetooth, the mobile phone battery charges from that one, it taken about this a low power, it requires a low power value. And this Bluetooth short range works because the frequency which we are using the mobile phone range in the form of this some amount of megahertz to the limited amount of gigahertz value. Based upon the communication we are using that one, which we go for this 2G communication, 3G communication or 4G communication, based upon the communication and based upon the frequency structure we are using that one. So that frequency, the wavelength is very limited value, because the frequency is also depending upon my wavelength value, that is f is directly proportional to c by lambda, which is c is my acting as a velocity of my light, which is apparently which is 3 × 10⁸ meter per second, and lambda in the form of this millimeter value. And this frequency is what kind of respective frequency I'm using that one. So based upon the frequency range value, the Bluetooth is under the working under of the maximum of 100 meters range value. That is the reason we calling as a short range communication value. So a SIG group, the special interest group, they develop the one kind of interconnecting computing communication services, and that communication services, the wireless mobile phone communication or wireless radio communication services, that project we calling as a Bluetooth. So how it works, when you see in the Bluetooth communication, so this we having as two piconets can connected to the one kind of a scatter net mechanism. So this piconet acting as one kind of Bluetooth mechanism. So this piconet acting as another kind of Bluetooth mechanism. When you see this one, we having as a two things are there. One we having as active slave, another one we having as a parked slave. So this parked slave, so every mechanism, so this acting as a signal transmission, this acting as signal receiver. So while the signal is on, while the Bluetooth signal is activated and this piconet Bluetooth signal is activated, so we are going to communicate between the two Bluetooth signal based upon the one separate bridge value. Based upon this subdomain bridge value, the union of these two piconet value, we establish one kind of separate bridge. That bridge we calling as a slave bridge value. The name itself we calling as a slave bridge value. What is slave bridge value? The bridge between the one piconet to one Bluetooth communication devices to another Bluetooth communication devices. The pairing between these two mechanisms, these two piconet or these two Bluetooth value, that bridge we calling as a slave bridge value. Once this slave bridge, the union of these bridges successfully established, then the active slave signal successfully transmitted and this one is successfully received. So if this bridge is not paired successfully, we are unable to signal transmission, we are unable to signal receiving, because once the connection is not yet established, so it is highly difficult or impossible to signal transmission from source to destination. So but how this piconet can be connected, how it is established? So we take an example. For example, we having as a one Bluetooth module is there, right? So this Bluetooth module, the signal is activated. So but how it is activated? Because in the interconnecting network is there in every mobile phone we having as a Bluetooth, so that is acting as interconnecting network, and we initiate the process of this Bluetooth scanner value. So once we are able to scan the value, what amount of signal comes in the range? What is the range of this value? Short range value, which is the maximum 100 meters range. So once the scanning of this Bluetooth internet communication, so what other Bluetooth is on in this domain range, so it able to scan the value, right? And based upon our requirement, we are pairing the value. So when you see in this figure structure also, so we are able to establish one kind of piconet architecture value. We are able to establish the one kind of piconet architecture value. So this piconet architecture value, which means the Bluetooth is activated. So this Bluetooth range should be a short range value. So what are the things comes into this domain value, this range value? So this piconet and the Bluetooth device comes in the same range value. So we have to scan the value, we have to pair the value. The scanning between the bridge between this Bluetooth device and this Bluetooth architecture networking path. So when that calling as a bridge slave value, so this having as limited range value and this also having as a limited range value. So both the device comes into the nearby region value within the sub networking value, inter-networking value, and then the Bluetooth is connected and the Bluetooth signal is activated when we can able to active slave is there, as well as a parked slave is there. When the signal is successfully, bridge slave is activated successfully, then we initiate the process of signal transmission as well as signal receiving. What is the Bluetooth profile names? When go for these generic names, so in the we having a generic access are there, which means a procedure for this link management, and service discovery is there, which calling as a protocol for discovering offer services, which means we have to give a generic access to link management, and we having as a service discovery, which means a protocol for discovering offered services comes under the same picture or comes under the same network value. And next one is we calling a serial port, so which means a replacement of serial port cable, or a generic object exchange, which means a client different relationship between the object and the moment. So we having as a previously we were discussing about active slave and parked slave, which we having as a client and server relationship, which means generic object to exchange value. And next one, a LAN access. So the protocol of mobile computer to fixed as a LAN communication, which we calling as a local area computer network communication. And next one we calling as a developing network, which means a notebook kind of computers we call via mobile phones. So that a dial-up networking. And similarly we having as a fax. The mobile phones also allows a fax machine to talk to a mobile phones. We can able to handle that mechanism as well. And a cordless telephone which connect the handsets to a local base station. And we having as intercom, which having as a digital walkie-talkie, a limited short range, a local area network, inter-network communication, we calling as intercom. And we having as headset, we having as a hand-free voice communication, which we having as a wireless Bluetooth headset or earbuds kind of structure. And next one, a objective push, which means it provides to wait exchange a simple kind of object. Once information successfully transmitted, we have to push the signal transmission from one station to another station, which we are using some a simple object values only. And other one is a file transfer, so which provides a generic or a general file transfer facility. We have that one. Once the connection is successfully established, we have to initiate the file transfer from one station to another station, that we calling as a file transfer communication. And next one is synchronization. So what is synchronization? It permits the a personal device access, that we calling as a PDS, personal device access, to synchronize with other computer or another devices, that it permits the values only. So when you see this one, so we having as a one Bluetooth architectures. So once the pairing is successfully transmitted, successfully designed, so which means we are established one kind of a sub infra network value, sub intra network communication value. So what are things we present over there? We can able to handle the mechanism, we can able to share the hotspot connections or a LAN connections, or we are able to go for the fax connection once we are successfully establishing. So we can able to Bluetooth, also we can able to send the fax, or we can able to receive the mechanism through mobile phone devices, or else we are able to establishing the intercom communication. For example, when we go for this a gateway, normally a gated community situation, also we are establishing one kind of a networking path, which means we are possessing the similar network architecture, a internet architecture. We are going to using this intercom services, or present days in the real-time applications, also in the majority of the gated communities, they are using this intercom services. And we are using this wireless headset services or wireless earpod services to establishing to via a Bluetooth communication devices. Once the generation is completed, once the pairing is successfully transmitted, we are establishing networking. We are able to sync with the objects, the other Bluetooth devices. We are pairing that one. We are able to sync with the devices, and we are able to go for the file transfer mechanism. How it is works? So when go for this 802.15, which is IEEE standard protocol, which is 802.15 protocol, is a Bluetooth architecture protocol. So in this architecture protocol, we having as application profiles, and we having as audio links, and we can able to having as a particular link manager. We have that one, which is we can able to handle the link adaptation protocols. Based upon that one, we can able to establish in the communication, we calling as a middle layer as well as our data link layer, which is our baseband communication, or else our RFM communication and telephone communication. And we'll go for this physical layer, that we calling as a physical radio communication. So end of the day, this should be forming a single layer. We are going to using the application layer in the profile perspectives. So what is the structure is there? The frame structure, which consists of bits, is there. We having as access code, we having as header files, and we having as a data files. The length of this file, which in the form of this bits value, previously discussing about byte value, but we discussing about this bit value, which is 72-bit value, and our data comes to the picture of 0 to 2744 bit values only. So but in the header files, we having as address section, the source address section, destination address section, what is the type kind of thing we are using that one, and what is the framing value, what is the advantage value, what is the access values, all the things we discuss here. We're calling as FAS mechanism. The bit value is 111, and other important thing is checksum mechanism. We have to check the errors over there. We calling as checksum mechanism. So enter the things, we comes a picture which is 54 length of the value. The overall length is 18-bit header, which is repeated 3 times of the local bit value, which is 54 size values only. And next one is we discussing about Ethernet communication. So in the IEEE standard, the local air network, which is a MAN network, which is Metropolitan Air Network, which comes the picture of this 802.1, which calling as all the protocol. We calling as the 802.11 protocol to till 802.19 protocol. All the things comes to in this picture. And the most important survivors of this one, we calling as the 802.3, we comes to the picture of this Ethernet devices, and 802.11 we calling as a wireless communication, and this 15 we calling as a Bluetooth, and 16 we calling as a wireless MAN services. So how it is established? So when we go for this Ethernet cabling, so while the signal transmission between the Ethernet cabling from, there are 3 types of Ethernet cabling is there: 10 base 5, 10 base 2, and 10 base T value. So here the information is transferred, the transfer computer is there and connector value is there. So based upon the signal transmission via this taper value, via this transceiver cable value, we are going to establishing one kind of Ethernet cable value. Apparently we are using this a OFC cable value to establishing this LAN kind of services value. That cabling we calling as a 10 base 5, 10 base 2 and 10 base T. So these things we discuss in the physical layer medium, the chapter 1, which is under the transmission medium section. We discuss in this cabling mechanisms. And other important thing is a switch network, which we calling as a wire through switches, or we are using some kind of bridges or some kind of gateways or some kind of switches we are using that one. So that switches we are going to establish the connector with help of my physical communication cable, which is 10 base T section cable via host computers, which is connected to the Ethernet value, from Ethernet to hub station value, from hub to n number of host station values. And what is the fast Ethernet value? When you go for this one 802.3u, we calling as a fast Ethernet cable based upon the cable mechanism, based upon the T4, TX and FX mechanism, based upon the segmentation value, which means based upon the maximum signal transmission rate values, we can able to go for the fast Ethernet cabling value, which is 380p, 100 Mbps and 100 Mbps. The faster transmission, a unshielded twisted pair cables we are using that one, and a full duplex communication cables we are using that one, with a range of this maximum of 100 Mbps range. So on the duration, the signal transmission rate is also very high value. We calling as a fast Ethernet cabling value. And next one is gigabit Ethernet, which means a two-station Ethernet and multi-station Ethernet. So here the two-station Ethernet in the sense we having is one source and one destination, and multi-station we having as a based upon the switches value, based upon the hub station value, n number of clients we can able to accommodate value. That we calling as a point-to-point one, a two-station Ethernet, and we calling as a multi-point, we calling as a multi-station Ethernet. So I conclude this session. In this session, we discussing about this Bluetooth value as well as we discussing about this Ethernet communication value. So in this we discussing about various protocol from 802 point standard, which is IEEE standard, we discuss in this session. And comes to the Bluetooth, we discussing about Bluetooth architecture and how signal to be established, how the signal transmission rate and how the signal receiver rate and what is the framing structure. All these things we discuss in this session. In the upcoming session, we discussing about this LAN connection, which is a local area network. We discuss in the next session. Thank you.